I want to start by first showing you this Pokédex entry for Pidgeot. This Pokemon flies at Mach 2 speed, seeking prey. Its large talons are feared as wicked weapons. Now, assuming that this is a Pidgeot that is level 100 and has a positive speed nature, then we can make the assumption that any Pokemon that has a speed stat of at least 331 can move at Mach 2 speed. That's about 1,534 miles per hour here in the States, and 2,469 kilometers per hour for the rest of the world. The speed of sound is about Mach 1, or 767 miles per hour, 1,234 kilometers per hour, which would mean that any Pokemon with a speed stat of about 166 can move at the speed of sound. A max speed Snorlax with a positive speed nature can accumulate a base speed stat of 174, which would definitely let our chunky rotund mountain of a friend easily break the sound barrier as he chases you down for your snacks. You should probably click that subscribe button down below. I heard it will give Snorlax a cookie, which should slow him down. Did you press it yet? Hey, at least someone did. Now, getting back on track, the first obvious counter-argument is that the Pokédex entries are just some journal entries written in the diaries of some random kids throughout the Pokemon world. Clearly, these entries have to be gross exaggerations, right? Well, first off, is it so unbelievable that the dex entries of the Pokédex holders are true? These are the same people who are capable of reaching the top of the world government at a young age. They are entrusted to topple organized crime throughout their respected regions, and they are often the sole individuals capable of taming gods. Literally, God himself entrusts a random teenager with a mission of going back in time to save the universe. If the protagonists of these Pokemon games are intended to be masters of all things Pokemon, and the most capable trainers ever, why would their ability to make honest research be the thing that we question? It just doesn't make sense that of everything, we would doubt this specifically. It's also important to note that the Pokédex entries follow real-world research principles. You all know how science experiments work, right? You are given a setup to some experiment, asked to make a hypothesis on what you think will happen, run the experiment, mark your observations, then draw conclusions on why things happen. They teach you this in school. Well, the reason why scientists conduct experiments, specifically the reason why scientists will run the same experiments over and over, is to ensure that the conclusions and observations are repeatable. What strengthens any fact or theory that we discover in science is if other people can replicate it. For example, if we look back at the Pidgeot Pokédex entries, we can see that of the 6 Pokemon regions where Pidgeot can be caught or used in, at least half of those regions have come to the same conclusion that Pidgeot can reach speeds of Mach 2. This is important because it would bolster the credibility of Pidgeot's speed capabilities if multiple parts of the world are discovering this same fact without the influence of other regions. But even if you still doubt this speed feat, let's look at the game's Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Specifically, we will be looking at the flying mechanics of Mega Latios and Latios. Unlike in most Pokemon games where flight is shown as this instantaneous action hopping between towns, we actually get to fly around riding these Hoenn legendaries. What's important to note is that when flying, you have the option to briefly pick up speed, and when doing so, an air cone is shown to surround Mega Latios and Latios. These vapor cones, as they are called, are specifically made when an object breaks the speed of sound. Now, looking over Latios' Pokédex entries, we see several dex entries which states Latios can easily outspeed a jet plane. This is important because if you look at the fastest jet planes in real life, many of them go at speeds of Mach 2 all the way to Mach 6. If Latios, Latios, and their megaforms all have a max speed of 350, and they can outpace jet planes moving at Mach 2 speed, then like Pidgeot, we are seeing a second Pokemon that confirms this notion that the 330 to 350 range is the speed needed to double the speed of sound. Sort of. See, there is one last issue I forgot to address, and that's when these Pokédex entries are written down. See, when you discover a new Pokemon, it will show up in your Pokédex. However, the Dex entry will not. It's only when you own that Pokemon is when you will finally see the Dex entries show up. This could be when catching the Pokemon, trading for the Pokemon, or evolving them. And that last point is interesting. If you evolve a Pidgeotto into a Pidgeot at level 36, that's when you will get the Dex entry. That means at as low as level 36, you can get a Pidgeot flying at Mach 2. And if we're considering its maximum speed stat, it would only have to have a speed stat of 122 to do so. This would mean that Shuckle, the slowest Pokemon in the entire game, can break the speed of sound with enough speed investments, and if it's at level 100. And we aren't even done there. Turning your attention to the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee games, if you become champion, you can actually find Pidgeots in areas as early as Kanto's Route 1. Now, you would think because you are the champion, these Pokemons would have a higher level than what's usually found in Route 1. And for the most part, they are. Pidgeot's max level in this area is about 56. That being said, you can also find Pidgeot as low as level 3. If you catch a level 3 Pidgeot, you would still get the Pokédex entry mentioning its speed is able to reach Mach 2. At this point, Pidgeot's speed can be no higher than 14. Basically, every single Pokemon for the majority of their existence is capable at moving several times the speed of sound. Now you might say this is crazy, and it kind of is, but I just proved how it's canon to the games that Pokemon with base 110 speed can casually break the sound barrier by going multiple times the speed of sound. Even if you want to say that Pokemon with a speed stat of 350 are the only ones that can break the speed of sound, that would still mean that of the 1,025 Pokemon we have, still 125 of them can break the sound barrier. That's at minimum 12% of the entire Pokédex that can achieve this feat. Really puts into perspective just how crazy Pokemon are. Well, what do you think? Comment down below your thoughts. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. But with that, until next time, I hope you all enjoyed.